Okay, let's unpack this. We're accelerating today right into the core of autonomous mobility.
We are.
We have a fascinating stack of sources detailing the evolution of Waymo, starting, as this secret Google experiment, and then just transforming into one of the world's most sophisticated robotaxi networks.
That's our mission today. We're tracing that whole lineage. How did a secretive, decade-old research project actually graduate into a scalable transportation service?
Right.
One that is moving, paying passengers daily with zero human intervention in the front seat. So we're really focusing on the foundational tech, the business strategy, and the implications for urban life.
And before we touch any of the hardware or the code, I think we have to set the stakes. The foundation of this entire industry, it really rests on one high-stakes question. Can a complex, layered system of sensors, software, and deep simulation systematically reduce that catastrophic element of human error?
Distraction, fatigue.
Exactly. Distraction, fatigue, intoxication, emotion, all the things that cause millions of crashes and tens of thousands of fatalities every single year. This isn't just about convenience. It's basically a moral mandate.
It is. At the end of the day, it's a choice. Replacing human fallibility with deterministic AI. And to understand how they approach that, we really have to go back to the beginning.
Let's do it. Let's travel back to 2009. We're inside the original Google X, the company's famed moonshot factory.
Right.
And this is where the Google self-driving car project first began as a deeply stealth operation.
And the crucial early leadership, it came from Sebastian Thrun. Now, he was a recognized robotics pioneer, a Stanford AI professor.
Just won the DARPA Grand Challenge, right?
Exactly. He led the team that won the 2005 DARPA Grand Challenge. And that competition proved that cars could navigate hundreds of miles of unmarked desert terrain completely on their own. Thrun brought that technical ambition and that talent directly into Google.
And their first test vehicle was famously accessible, the humble Toyota Prius. But these were not humble cars internally, were they?
Not at all. They were immediately outfitted with this complex custom equipment. I mean, you've seen the pictures. The initial massive spinning LiDAR unit on the roof.
The big bucket.
The big bucket, yeah. Plus radar arrays, cameras, and this immense onboard computer system just crammed into the trunk.
So they weren't just driving, they were basically creating a mapping engine on wheels.
That's a good way to put it. But the technical milestone they set internally was just brutal. It was designed to quickly test the fragility of this, nascent software.
This is the 10 100-mile routes.
Exactly. They tasked the software with successfully completing 10 distinct 100-mile routes around California, driven entirely by the computer.
100 miles. It sounds manageable, but we're talking about California traffic. What exactly made those 10 routes so difficult for an early AI?
It was the messy, unpredictable reality of the world. I mean, the world outside a clean lab environment. They had to handle unprotected left turns across heavy traffic.
A key human stressor.
A huge one. They had to negotiate these complex multi-lane merges onto busy freeways. The system needed to recognize and safely interact with cyclists weaving in and out of bike lanes and pedestrians who weren't, strictly following the rules. Hitting that target proved the software wasn't just a robotics parlor trick.
Right.
It was a credible foundation for a real safety-critical system.
And once they hit those targets, the shift from stealth to the spotlight was pretty quick, right? Around 2010?
Very quick. Google started releasing videos and these detailed blog posts of the self-driving Priuses just cruising on public roads. And this was a critical PR move.
Why so critical?
It reframed the entire public conversation. Before this, autonomous driving was, it was science fiction.
Right, from the movies.
Exactly. Suddenly, it was framed as an achievable engineering solution focused on solving massive societal problems. Specifically, the potential for reduced crashes, vastly decreased commuter stress, and maybe even eliminating traffic congestion.
Okay, so as the project matures through the mid-2010s, the focus, it seems, evolved beyond just bolting sensors onto existing cars.
It did.
The central strategic question became almost philosophical. If the driver is the software, why does the vehicle need traditional human-centric controls at all?
That is the pivotal moment. It led directly to the unveiling of that small, deliberately quirky pod car prototype around 2014.
The one with no steering wheel, no pedals.
Exactly. Designed from the ground up to have neither.
Now, while the pod car looked futuristic, critics immediately jumped on that, arguing that by removing the human controls, they were basically admitting the tech wasn't flexible enough for situations where a human might need to take over.
And that critique, it really missed the core philosophy.
Hmm.
The pod car's design forced the confrontation that the human cannot be the fallback driver.
Hmm.
If the car needed a human to take over in an emergency, that meant the system had already failed to handle the situation it was in.
So it was a statement.
A huge statement.
Uh.
The machine is the only driver, and it must therefore handle 100% of the driving task within its defined operational environment. And that defined Waymo's path toward what we call level 4 autonomy.
Okay, let's quickly define that because it's crucial. What's the real distinction between level 2 or 3, which, we see in some consumer cars today, and this level 4?
So level 2 and level 3 automation, they still require human supervision. In level 3, the car can drive itself under certain conditions, but the human has to be ready to take over within seconds.
Right, you have to keep your hands on the wheel, or close.
Exactly. Level 4 is fundamentally different. It means the vehicle is fully self-driving, but, and this is key, only within a specific predefined area, the operational design domain, or ODD.
So like a geo-fenced part of a city.
Precisely. Outside that ODD, say, outside a pre-mapped zone or during an extreme blizzard, the car has to pull over safely. The machine is responsible for everything inside that zone.
And they proved that concept with one of their most powerful demonstrations in 2015.
Oh, absolutely.
A truly driverless ride on public roads given to a legally blind passenger, Steve Mahan.
That moment was transformative. It instantly connected the technological achievement to, real-world impact for you, for the listener.
Mm-hmm.
It showed how level 4 automation could unlock true mobility and independence for people unable to drive due to disability, age, or just lack of access. It moved AVs from being a geek toy to potentially essential societal infrastructure.
And that maturation, that triggered a major business shift. In 2015, they hired John Kraftic.
A huge hire. A seasoned auto industry executive from Ford and Hyundai.
And hiring someone with that kind of deep manufacturing and commercial experience, it really signaled the project was pivoting from pure research to commercialization.
The final structural shift then came in December 2016. The project spun out from Google X into its own subsidiary under the Alphabet umbrella.
And it got its name, Waymo.
Waymo short for a new way forward in mobility. And being housed under Alphabet was a massive advantage. It gave them access to, virtually unlimited capital and, critically, the luxury of a long-term outlook.
Right, they weren't tied to quarterly earnings reports like a traditional automaker.
Not at all. They were insulated. The moonshot had officially graduated into a business.
Okay, so the pod car proved the philosophy, but the multi-billion-dollar IP, that lives inside the brain. So let's get under the hood of what Waymo calls the Waymo driver.
Right.
It's described as this combination of sensors, mapping, perception, prediction, and planning. What exactly makes Waymo's tech stack so distinctive?
Well, it starts with the hardware, with the sensors. Waymo made a really strategic pivot early on to develop much of its sensor suite in-house.
So instead of buying off the shelf.
Exactly. While they initially relied on third-party LiDAR, those huge spinning units, they realized that to get the performance, scale, and cost reduction they needed, they had to own the technology.
So they went from relying on companies like Velodyne to engineering their own solutions, like their laser bear system. Why was that so vital?
Cost and calibration. Custom sensors integrate far, far better with your specific software stack. Waymo's 5th-generation LiDAR units, for example, provide this precise, high-resolution 360-degree map of the environment.
And that detail is crucial for safety.
Absolutely. And this incredibly detailed sensory data, that all feeds the first layer of the brain, perception.
Okay, so perception is the interpretation layer, right? It's making sense of all that data.
Precisely. Perception algorithms identify every single object within that sensor data. A car, a bike, a loose construction cone, a pedestrian glancing at their phone, and it estimates its precise position, velocity, and trajectory in space.
So it's not just seeing a blob, it's identifying it as a cyclist who needs, a certain amount of clearance.
Exactly. It understands what it is. But now comes what most engineers agree is the hardest challenge in autonomous driving.
Anticipating intent.
That's the prediction layer. And prediction isn't just looking at current velocity. It's like a highly defensive driver calculating 5 future moves for every other object simultaneously and then assigning a probability score to each one.
It's running countless digital what-if scenarios.
All the time. What if that pedestrian steps off the curb? What if the car, 2 lanes over, suddenly cuts me off? This is where the AI truly uses millions of miles of real-world data to recognize and anticipate patterns of human behavior on the road.
Which leads to the final step.
Planning and control. This is the decision-making layer. It takes all that perception and prediction data and runs it through algorithms that determine the safest and most comfortable maneuver for the vehicle.
Accelerate, brake.
Execute a lane change, or just patiently wait for a safe gap in traffic. And this happens many, many times every second.
And crucially, underpinning all of this massive real-time calculation is the simulation infrastructure. This is where the scaling really happens.
The simulation is the engine of improvement. It's
Right.
just massive. Waymo reports running millions of virtual miles daily,
Millions a day.
a day. And this allows them to test edge cases, those ultra-rare situations that would take years to encounter in the real world. Think about a high-stakes scenario. A person chasing a dog into the street, or a massive piece of debris falling from a truck.
So instead of waiting for those one-in-a-million events, they can just synthesize them in a virtual world to train the system's reaction. What's a concrete example of an edge case they solved in simulation?
One classic example is construction zones. You might have human flaggers holding an unusual, non-standard sign or directing traffic in a way that's not in the highway code.
Right, a confusing situation for a computer.
Very. But in simulation, Waymo can introduce hundreds of variations of human instruction, confusing hand signals, temporary barriers, teaching the system to defer or navigate safely, rather than just freezing up in confusion. This ability to handle novel situations is the core differentiator.
Okay, so once they spun out as Waymo, they needed a viable commercial platform. That's where the partnership with Fiat Chrysler came in.
Yep, integrating the Waymo driver into the Chrysler Pacifica hybrid minivans. Those became the early workhorses of the network.
And the launch strategy was just as deliberate. They chose the Phoenix metro area, specifically Chandler and Tempe.
A very strategic choice. You've got clear, predictable weather, wide multi-lane roads, and critically, a supportive regulatory environment. They could build a regulatory moat there.
They started with the 2017 Early Rider program, which used human safety drivers at first. But this wasn't just about testing the tech, was it? It was about human factors.
That's right. They're gathering crucial real-world feedback on comfort levels. Should the car be assertive, like a confident human, or should it be overly cautious? Where should it pull up for drop-offs? That feedback loop was vital for polishing the rider experience.
And here's where the narrative just leaps forward. Around 2020, Waymo took the defining step.
The big one.
They began offering rides in Phoenix with no human safety driver in the front seat. This is the consumer product, Waymo One, hailed through an app.
It was a massive psychological hurdle, I think, for the public and for the company. I mean, watching a steering wheel turn by itself while the driver's seat is empty it's jarring. But from a business perspective, that's the moment the economics fundamentally shifted.
Explain that. How does eliminating the driver change the business model so drastically?
Human labor is the single largest operating cost for any ride-hailing company, like Uber or Lyft. By eliminating the need for a human driver, a cost that doesn't scale well at all, Waymo changes the marginal cost per ride dramatically.
The R&D is massive.
The R&D costs are astronomical, but the software cost scales to near zero across thousands of vehicles. It fundamentally improves the long-term profitability and competitive advantage.
Now, Phoenix is kind of the low-hanging fruit of the AV world, geographically speaking.
Yeah.
But to prove the true generalization of the system, they had to expand to tougher environments, and San Francisco is notoriously brutal.
San Francisco is the anti-Phoenix. It's designed to stress test every single component of the Waymo driver. You have extreme density, sharp hills that lock sensor visibility, sudden fog.
And microclimates.
The microclimates, yeah, and complex, chaotic interactions with weaving cyclists and aggressive pedestrians. The system had to prove it could handle chaos, not just clear predictability.
And then Los Angeles adds its own unique flavor of complexity.
LA is challenging because of sheer scale. It requires mapping vast, sprawling neighborhoods, managing some of the most complex, high-speed freeway interactions in the world, and dealing with a whole different set of road etiquette and traffic patterns unique to that city. So that expansion, it proves the technical capability is generalizing, not just memorizing one specific environment.
Let's talk about the business structure guiding this. In 2021, John Krafcik stepped down, and Waymo shifted to a co-CEO structure.
Tikedra Balkana handles operations, policy, and partnerships, while Dmitry Dolgov focuses on the technical stack.
And that dual leadership seems to reflect the reality of the autonomous landscape now.
It does. The challenge is no longer purely engineering. It is equally regulatory and logistical. You need Malakana, who can navigate municipal politics and insurance hurdles, and you need Dolgov, who ensures the core tech remains cutting edge and safe.
They also formalized their two primary business lines, Waymo One for passengers and Waymo Via for freight and logistics, and they've raised massive external funding rounds.
Which signals that external investors now view both robotaxis and autonomous logistics as essential future infrastructure.
The scale is just astonishing. By the mid-2020s, Waymo is reaching hundreds of thousands of rides per week across its markets.
Tens of millions of historical rides. And that scale is vital because every single ride, every unexpected construction zone, every tricky interaction, it feeds data back into the system, continuously training and improving the Waymo driver.
But the operational complexity behind the scenes is what the rider never sees. This isn't just cars driving themselves.
Oh, not at all.
Yeah.
It requires massive infrastructure. You have maintenance depots, cleaning crews, teams constantly updating the high-definition maps, and the remote assistance teams.
Remote assistance is key, right?
It is. In instances where the car encounters a scenario that falls outside its training, say a traffic officer giving a highly unusual gesture, the car pulls over and pings a human remote assistant.
And that person, they don't drive the car, do they?
No, they don't. That assistant, viewing the car's sensor data, can provide high-level guidance. They might validate a safe maneuver, like, yes, it is safe to proceed past that obstacle. It ensures the system doesn't freeze. It's a crucial safety net that makes the Level 4 rollout viable today.
And their long-term vision, it clearly extends beyond just U.S. metro areas.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're pursuing international pilots, some early work in Tokyo, and actively partnering with major automakers like Hyundai and Toyota.
Which suggests a future model where Waymo doesn't necessarily own and operate every vehicle.
Right. They could license the Waymo driver operating system to various manufacturers, making them a software and mapping supplier, not just a fleet operator.
So, connecting all the threads of this deep dive, we've tracked a 2009 secret project fueled by these rigorous 100-mile tests and a deep philosophical commitment to Level 4 autonomy, evolving into a successful robotaxi network that's serving paying riders in multiple major cities with a sophisticated proprietary software driver right at its core.
Waymo's decade-long story is a textbook demonstration of what happens when a moonshot survives that initial hype cycle, long enough to start laying the groundwork for genuine infrastructure.
Yeah.
It never feels like a sudden revolution. It starts to feel normal, slowly, quietly, and then all at once, you realize the fundamental architecture of urban transportation has been irrevocably changed.
So if autonomous vehicles successfully scale and reduce crashes, and that leads to a profound reshaping of cities, eliminating the need for vast parking lots, maybe reducing reliance on some public transit, what unintended consequences might arise for the human elements of urban planning?
That's the question. What happens to the thousands of jobs in the gig economy, or the traditional infrastructure of road maintenance and traffic enforcement that might change dramatically?
Yeah.
That's the strategic question for you to keep exploring as Waymo continues its expansion.